Hey everybody out there in internet land, this is Chris Lemig and welcome to a Tuesday edition of what is now being called 30 Minutes of Awakening. I've been doing a series for a while. I took a short break here, but I was doing a series called Compassion Tuesday and took a little break from that, and now I'm back and I'm going to get back into doing some meditation once a week here on Facebook Live, and also posting these to my personal YouTube channel and sharing those around. And the theme is still going to be compassion, but I'm calling it 30 Minutes of Awakening because we're going to be talking a lot about what's known as Bodhicitta, or awakening mind. And compassion is definitely folded into that topic. So we'll be talking about that and meditation and being kind, cultivating kindness in ourselves, in our hearts, in our lives, in our families, in our communities, and in our world. And I think the world has always needs this. And there's many great teachers out there and many great beings that have been teaching this for a long time. And I think that all I'm doing here is just kind of putting a little tiny little eyedropper into that great ocean of compassion and love and kindness. And I want to contribute a little bit and have you all come together too and have a discussion about this, and how can we make our world a better place right now in this moment, not at some other later time, not at some time in the future, but right now. What can we do to be decent human beings, to bring spiritual principles into our lives, whether we're religious or not, whether we believe in something extraordinary, other than, this one life or not. We can still practice spiritual principles and spiritual, ideals in our life without necessarily being a religious person. So I welcome anyone to join in on this discussion and this practice of meditation and of compassion and of awakening. And I'm looking forward to this journey, and I'm recommitting myself to doing this on a weekly basis. So this is the first edition of 30 Minutes of Awakening. I don't really know what we're going to talk about. I figure we'll just start with a meditation like we've been doing before. We'll do about 10 minutes of meditation, and then we can talk a little bit about awakening, okay? So whether you're out there watching this live, whether you're watching it at a different time, doesn't matter. Go ahead and find a nice comfortable space, a place to sit, either a chair, on a cushion, on the floor, somewhere outside if you're outside. And just go ahead and get into a nice comfortable position where you are able to sit with a straight back. That's kind of the main thing. If we sit with a straight back and we have a nice straight posture, then that helps us to stay fresh and awake throughout the meditation. And then we'll go ahead, and you can either be sitting cross-legged, you could be sitting in a chair with your feet on the ground. Whatever's comfortable for you is not really, it's not really an issue. So whatever works for you the best. Not everybody can sit on the ground. Not everyone can sit on a cushion or cross-legged, and that's not even an issue. So meditation isn't about, twisting yourself up in knots. It's about being comfortable, but at the same time, being able to stay awake and stay fresh. So however that works for you. So with your straight spine, then we're going to just go ahead and keep our shoulders open, keep them nice and kind of in a nice open posture. You can keep your hands on your lap. And then you can just kind of like let your gaze kind of like softly come down the end of your nose. In my case, that's a little bit hard to see the end of it, but but I try. And just kind of, you can keep your eyes open. That's a good way to meditate. You don't have to close your eyes, but if you would prefer that, if that's more what you're used to, go ahead and close your eyes. You can do that too. And then sometimes some instructions are given where you take the tip of your tongue and kind of let that rest gently at the upper soft palate of the roof of your mouth, just in front of or just behind your front teeth. And this helps to kind of prevent saliva from, kind of flowing too much, and keeps you from having to swallow all the time. Let's see, what else? Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and start sitting. And the basic instruction is really just to be mindful and present. And the way that we do that, one of the best ways to do that is by just focusing your awareness lightly on your breath. And there's some wonderful commentary out there by one of my teachers, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, who she just wonderfully and just succinctly says, the breath is such a wonderful thing to place your attention on and use as a focus for meditation, because you can only breathe in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past. You can't breathe in the future. You're only breathing right now. So when your awareness is on your breath, your awareness is all automatically in the present moment. So what a wonderful thing. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll just sit, eyes closed or open, again, whatever's comfortable for you. Sit and go ahead and just bring your attention lightly to your breath as the breath comes in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just notice the sensations of the breath. Let the breath be natural. Don't try to force anything. It doesn't have to be any way other than what it is. And if you're new to meditation, or hey, if you're old to meditation, at some point thoughts are going to come up. You're going to find that your awareness has drifted away from the breath and it's gone on to something else. Maybe it's a plan that you've been working on, or maybe it's a cramp in your leg, or a sound outside, traffic, or an airplane going overhead. And that's totally natural. It's totally natural and it's fine. And all we want to do at that point is just notice that our mind has wandered, our attention has wandered somewhere else, and bring our attention back to the breath. So wherever you are in the breath, just go ahead and come back and notice that. With a lot of patience for yourself, We're not striving to do meditation right. Meditation isn't something that we accomplish like in the kind of commonly held notion of what that word means. It's not something that we are achieving, like climbing a mountain or finishing a project at work, or running a race or something like that. Meditation is very relaxed, but it's very, very present and very awake. And we just try to cultivate that kind of awakeness. So when you notice your mind's drifted, just relax, notice that that's happened, and then come back to the breath. If you like, you can count the breath. That's one way to help to keep your attention. It can be a little added support. And so just count whole cycles of the breath, one inhalation, one exhalation. That's all one cycle of breathing. Breathing in one, exhaling one. Breathing in two, and exhaling two. And just count as many as you can until your mind wanders, and it probably will at some point. And again, don't worry, when you notice that you've lost count of the breath, just start at one again. And that may take some getting used to, the idea of starting over again and again. Failing again and again. Quote unquote, failing. Some meditation sessions are going to feel different from others. Sometimes you might feel like, wow, yeah, I'm really getting it this time. Very calm, very peaceful, very awake, very present. And that's great. Other times we might have meditation sessions where the mind is just racing and it's all over the place. And you just can't seem to stop the thoughts. And that should be your little alarm bell right there that, we're not trying to stop anything. We're not trying to stop thoughts. We're just noticing them, coming into the present moment. And actually, if your mind's very busy during a meditation session, switch the object of meditation then. Don't worry about focusing on the breath. Let your attention rest on the thoughts themselves and just watch the thoughts. Watch them go by. Don't try to hold on to them. Don't try to follow them. Just observe. Observe with this sense of openness and acceptance and curiosity. And when you do that, you'll possibly notice, at some point notice, that the thoughts just kind of naturally begin to subside on their own. They'll still trickle on by, but the flow, it's like a spigot's being slowly turned off until it's just a little drip. All right. Yeah, some guy meditating on Facebook Live. I'm sure I've got no competition whatsoever. So many things on out there right now going on. I'm a little bit of a Facebook junkie myself. I have to admit, I go through phases of having to really check myself into Facebook rehab. I start to get really kind of too drawn into it and forget that it really is designed to agitate you and to stimulate, to overstimulate. And I get caught up in that, and I get suckered into it just like anybody else. So I know what I'm competing with out there, and I'm not really even competing. That's not my intention. This 30 minutes a week that I want to do, this 30 minutes of awakening, we're calling it, is just something that my Buddhist teacher very kindly suggested that I give a try and do, just some short discussions about awakening, bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, and compassion, and some of the basic sort of mind training techniques and prayers. You can call them prayers, but really they're just sort of like mind training slogans and techniques out there that we've used in the Buddhist world for a long time that you don't have to be Buddhist to use. You don't have to particularly be religious even to use. They're just very practical and effective ways for training our minds and our speech and our actions in compassion and in what you could call, just sort of positive activity, I guess, for lack of a better term. So yeah, my teacher, my Lama, very kindly supporting me in this and just saying like, hey, just go out there and and share some of the things that you've learned over the years. I've spent several years in India studying with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and His Holiness the Karmapa, some other absolutely fantastic and incredible teachers and beings there. I spent a couple of years as a monk studying Tibetan language and Buddhist philosophy. And although there are absolutely, I know so many people that know so much more than I do, who are not, I'm just talking about regular, quote unquote, regular practitioners who really have taken this path to heart and have done incredible amounts of study, incredible amounts of practice and retreat. I'm just a beginner by comparison to many of the incredible practitioners that I know. However, I've done a little bit, so I'm going to try to share without getting into too deep of water. Just talk a little bit about some of the basic foundational ideas of training ourselves in compassion, training ourselves in becoming more awake to who we actually are, and more awake to a life of meaning and purpose that we can really settle into in a way that can bring us a lot of benefit, for ourselves personally, and for others, for those around us too. So that's kind of the direction of these short sessions that I will be getting back into doing weekly. I've got a tripod for my camera now, and lighting and things like that. So trying to get a little the technology down a little bit so that it just just happens very easily, and upload these videos and people can watch them and participate in however way they want. So I do want these to eventually be more discussions rather than me just talking to a camera, of course. So please, if you're watching this now or later, if you have questions, you have comments, if you have suggestions, or want some clarification on anything, just communicate through the comment section. You can reach out to me too through Facebook Messenger and email and all that sort of stuff too. So today let's just go ahead and we're going to begin fresh here. There's maybe some of you out there have seen some of my videos on compassion before, and we'll just kind of go back and talk a little bit about what compassion is. And starting maybe even by the end of this, I want to just kind of dive headlong into a practice, a mind training practice called the 4 immeasurable emotions, or the 4 immeasurables. And so just a little bit about what compassion is, what the mind of awakening is. So bodhicitta is the Sanskrit word. Bodhi means Bodhi means awaken or awakening, and chitta is mind, so it's the mind of awakening. And this is a really precious and deep concept that's throughout all of Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, which is a part of what's called the Mahayana tradition, or the sort of the great vehicle, where the spiritual path is aimed towards the eventual sort of liberation from suffering of all beings. So that's why it's called great, and that's why we talk about things like great compassion. It's compassion for ourselves and for other beings that's pretty big, it's pretty vast. And the mind of awakening is about cultivating that in all these wonderful and skillful ways. It's not an intuitive thing to wake up in the morning and to think today I'm going to work towards the liberation of myself and all beings. And not only that, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. And I'm not going to make it a big deal, and it's not going to be a big ego trip. It's just that's how I'm going to spend my day. So it's not really something that most people think about. So it's pretty special. It's a pretty special kind of concept, a pretty powerful concept. And so that's the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about as this series unfolds. So in the past, I've talked a little bit about the definition of compassion. So we'll kind of start there again today, and we'll continuously come back to that, and go deeper and deeper. What is compassion? What does it mean? What are how do we embody it in our lives? How do we think about it? How do we relate to it? How do we practice it? So compassion, a very basic definition, is the wish and the aspiration and the activity that that wants to alleviate the suffering of ourselves and others. So that's the aim, that's the wish, the goal, the aspiration. It's not necessarily something that we can always do, and that's okay if we at least have the aspiration, like, hey, it's like, may whatever I say, do, or think, to the best of my ability, alleviate suffering for myself and others. We're heading down a great road. We're starting to attune ourselves with that notion of hopefulness, really, of a hopeful attitude towards life, and what we're doing here. And it can be, that in itself can be really liberating, just having that aspiration. Even if we just bring it up once or twice a day, it can be really, really powerful. So we're cultivating this wish, this aspiration, this desire that we can alleviate our suffering and the suffering of others. Now, there's some ways to strengthen that resolve, and some of those ways include sitting down, and this is really fun, so you might think about this when you're deciding, do I want to sit down and watch Netflix, or do I want to meditate on suffering? We meditate on suffering to better kind of inform ourselves about what suffering is. And one of the meditations that we can do is to just kind of get into a state where we're relatively calm and present, where the mind is settled down a little bit, and we start to just kind of go over in our mind through our experience and recall what suffering is to us. What does that mean to us? What experiences have we had that we would consider to be suffering? And we spend some time with that. We spend some time experiencing that for ourselves, and we can go through all the just kind of the mundane things. We wake up in the morning, we didn't have a good night's sleep. That's suffering. We're out of creamer for the coffee, or I use oat milk now, so out of oat milk. Shit. It's disappointing. That's because you're looking forward to that cup of coffee, or you're out of your favorite breakfast item, or whatever it is. You're running late to work, whether it's a telecommuting or actually going to work. These days, here we are in a pandemic, and you're going to work, going to work for a lot of people there's a huge amount of anxiety and worry, and man, it's like, here I am, I'm getting paid, this really lousy wage, and they're calling me an essential worker, and I've got to go and risk my life so that I can check people out at the grocery store. That's suffering. We just kind of, we go through the list. We go through the list of our experience, and we check up on what it is that we're experiencing in life, so that when we start to say things like, may I and all beings and everyone be free from suffering, we first have to establish that there is really suffering. If we don't really understand that, and we don't have a really lived experience of what suffering means, a really deep experience of what suffering means, it's really hard to cultivate compassion. It's really hard to have conviction. So we all know that we're suffering. We all know that we experience suffering, but especially in our modern culture here, then this may be an opinion, but I think that you can make a strong argument that we avoid suffering we attempt to avoid it with just about every action that we can think of. We avoid it with distraction, with entertainment. Endless streams of entertainment just flowing at us. We're just drowning in just feed my desire, my wish to just be distracted from the sufferings of my life. Food, sugar is in everything now. We're just constantly trying to feed ourselves pleasure all the time, so that we don't have to experience suffering. You look at modern Western medicine, and the whole thing is like, God forbid anybody have a headache for 5 minutes. We don't even want to acknowledge that that's just unacceptable. It's like immediately, where's the pill? Just give me the pill. so I can get rid of this, so I can just go about my day and be productive, or whatever, whatever your goal is, or just simply not suffer. Drugs, alcohol, all these things are all these ways in which we try to deny suffering or change suffering, relieve suffering. And so it's, again, this is a counterintuitive thing to sit down in meditation and to say, like, you know what, I'm actually not going to try to get rid of the suffering right now. I'm just going to try to experience it and acknowledge it. And with this sense of curiosity, say, like, okay, well, what is this suffering? What's actually going on here? What is it like? What's its nature? And just accepting it and saying, and the end goal of this, or in the beginning at least, is to simply acknowledge that, yeah, I suffer a lot. We suffer from heat and cold and discomfort. The minute we get comfortable on the couch, watching our TV show, our foot falls asleep, right? After a long day, it's like finally, oh God, everything's finally done, and you can sit down for 30 minutes or 42 and a half minutes or whatever it is, and enjoy your show, and within 10 minutes, your foot's asleep, and you're suffering again, and we want to recognize that. We want to recognize that that's actually our condition. That's our condition, so that we can begin the process of cultivating compassion by starting with ourselves, starting with us right here, right now. Acknowledging that I suffer, we all do. And not necessarily in these really, terrible lamentations of Dante's Inferno, sufferings all the time. Of course not. There's some wonderful things that we experience, joys and thrills and excitement and satisfactions and all this stuff. But even those, we suffer those because they're impermanent, and they end. They come to an end, and as a result, we suffer because it doesn't last. We get that new job or that perfect career. We're on track. Finally, we work so hard to get there, and then we're finally there, and we walk into the office, and hey, maybe we're happy with it for a while, however long it is, but man, right? Within some period of time, we start to see the little things that are wrong with it. The little, oh yeah, so-and-so down in this department is just such a jerk. And oh man, this one supervisor that I have, this one project manager is just, such an asshole, and really makes my life miserable. I love my job, but man, this one person is just a complete jerk. Things like that. So even when even the moments of our greatest triumph are sort of laced with this potential for suffering from the very beginning. And so we can go one of two ways here. Again, we can check that and say, you know what, that sucks. I don't want to have anything to do with that, and that's really kind of a bummer. So where's the bottle of wine, or where's the distraction, or where's the little pleasure that's gonna, make that go away. Or we can not be daunted by that, and we can just accept that's how things are, and then, like I say, cultivate compassion for ourselves, and start to begin to ask the question, well, if that's the case, if life is so full of suffering, is there some way that we can alleviate that? Is there something that we can do to manage that suffering, or maybe even bring it to an end? Is there something? We can at least ask that question. Begin to ask it. Begin to explore it. Begin to say, well, it's kind of a good question. It's a worthwhile question to ask, because there's only two answers possible. There's either there is a way or there isn't, you know. And if we're not sure of whether or not there is or there isn't, then it would be nice to know, you know, because if we know that there isn't any way to work with suffering finally and skillfully and effectively, if there is no way, then we don't have to do anything anymore. Then we can just go about our day and just do the best we can. No harm, no foul, right? At least we'll know. But if we find that, like, hey, you know what, actually there is a way. There is a way to skillfully work with suffering and bring suffering to an end, maybe, then wouldn't that be a worthwhile thing to explore and to try to practice? So that's what the mind of awakening is. That's what bodhicitta is all about. It's all about recognizing our condition, recognizing the state we're in, recognizing the reality of our suffering that we're experiencing, owning up to it, taking responsibility for it, and setting this kind of firm resolve and motivation at the center of our lives to say, you know what, I'm tired of that shit. I'm tired of it, you know, for me and for everybody else. And if there's a way out of it, then I'm gonna try. I'm at least gonna try my best. And that's what this whole path of Buddhism is all about. That's what the whole path of bodhicitta is all about. And the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, he said, I found a way. I found the way out. I found the way out of suffering. And here's what you do. And it's nothing that I discovered. It's nothing that I created. It's nothing that I kind of. It's not like a webinar that I sat down and worked out the details and made what are those things called? You know, the slide presentations and stuff like that, and the workbooks. You know, he just realized there's a way. There's a way to bring the suffering to an end. So I personally don't claim to have that knowledge or experience, but I'm believing that guy, and all the the great Buddhist teachers and masters that came after, and saying, you know what, I'm going to put my faith in you guys. You know, you're saying that you found the way. I'm going to give it a try. So, and what I've personally found is that, you know, over the past 13 years or so, you know, what I've picked up and what I've learned and what I've really tried to apply in my life has been really effective, actually. You know, I'm by no means free from suffering forever. You know, it's like I have all kinds of issues come up and difficulty with emotions, and I get angry and I get upset and I get frustrated and I get scared and I stub my toe and all that kind of stuff. But the things that I've learned on this path of bodhicitta, of the mind of awakening, meditation and compassion, training myself in those kinds of concepts, have been really effective in lessening the suffering. The suffering is still there, but it's like, oh yeah, okay, but it's not like there's some relief. There's some relief to be had, and the relief comes when I realize that just like the joys in life are impermanent, so is the suffering in life. So are the challenges, and in a way, they're both the same, because they're just kind of these fleeting appearances that come and go. And so much of whether or not I suffer or whether or not I experience something that's maybe pleasing or pleasurable or brings happiness, fleeting happiness, has to do with how I look at things and how I label things and how I relate to things in a more or less fixed way, fixed and rigid way. The less fixed and rigid I am, I find, with anything, the lighter and the more open I begin to feel. And so it could be anything could be happening, you know. It could be that, you know, I've got the flu or a cold, and if I'm just like resisting it and saying like, damn it, I wish I didn't have this cold, I wish I didn't feel this way, I want to be better, you know, if I'm like that, it only increases the suffering. But I found that when I'm able to just be like, you know what, this is my body's, you know, natural response to a virus or whatever, and this is, you know, my nose is running and I feel a little like groggy, and just my body telling me, hey, slow down, take it easy, you know, wrap yourself up in a blanket and just kind of be, then, and accept it, and accept that it's going to be different tomorrow, then it's not so bad, you know, it's not as bad. So those yeah, so that's the kind of stuff we're going to be kind of getting into here. You know, Bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, waking up to how things really are, so that we can become more and more free from suffering. So I'm really looking forward to continuing this program here. I think I'm running out of time. I don't have a timer in front of me, but I do have a meeting that I need to get on here. So we're going to end it here today. But next week, next Tuesday, I'll post something, because actually I'm going to be on retreat and won't be able to post anything next week. But we'll get something up, and we'll start talking about the four immeasurables, the four immeasurable emotions of let's see, compassion or love, compassion, and yeah, love, compassion, boundless joy, and equanimity. And we'll kind of start taking a deep dive into this wonderful prayer called the Four Immeasurables, and kind of learn a little bit about how these four lines, these four, you know, very unassuming little lines, can actually be the foundation for a whole new way of life. Okay, so we'll get started with that, and I thank you for watching. For those of you who watched live, thanks for being here, and those of you who are watching later, hello, and again, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have anything to add from your own experience of this, and I want this to be a discussion and a give and take back and forth. So in the Buddhist tradition of dedication, I'd like to dedicate the positive energy that we've cultivated here today, and dedicate that to the enlightenment and the ultimate awakening of all beings, and to you and to everyone that you love and care for. I wish you well. Take care.